There's something a little bit uncomfortable we have to talk about. I have to give you some bad news, and I'm just gonna rip off the Band-Aid. You are not the main character. Okay, I came off a little harsh there. You does not mean you, the viewer, because if you're watching this, you probably already know what I'm talking about and you probably already understand, but there are too many people out there who think that they can do something that the majority of the rest of the swordsmanship world says isn't possible, and that is doing silly techniques like fighting in reverse grip, doing big spinning attacks, or doing acrobatics and things like that. They're not realistic and they don't work 9 times out of 10. The issue is there are a couple of accounts out there showing these things off, usually with some context that kind of invalidates it as a technique that you would want to use, but it's out there, it's in pictures, and it's in books, and sometimes people show those without the context, and it gives people the idea that these things are viable. For instance, there's one example from Fiore that I'm going to talk about. First, he says he's being held by the collar by another person with a dagger drawn about to stab him. So he's already in a bad situation. He cannot draw his sword forward because he's about to get hit. What he says to do from here is, while grasping the sword with the tip down, he steps back while pointing the scabbard's tip at their face, extending it until his sword is all the way drawn, and then he actually grabs here by the blade and stabs into their eye. Now, is this a technique in reverse grip? Yes, but it already assumes a failure state before you can do it. You are in a position where you can no longer draw your sword in a forward grip. You must draw it this way or you die. He basically says you're kind of screwed, but do what you can. And examples like this have led people to try and justify this as its whole fighting style. But there's a counter argument to that, and that is that everybody is using these to fight nowadays says don't do it. It's bad. They say spins are bad, they say reverse grip is bad, they say rolling around like a Dark Souls character is bad and it doesn't work. So when people try and say, oh no, it does work, you're just not trying hard enough, I find it a little bit arrogant, not because they're disregarding me, but they're disregarding all those people who spend decades of study and practice and say, nah, it's not really a thing. The other area that people draw a lot of inspiration from is more aesthetically based martial arts, things that have a lot of forms and a lot of beautiful movements. Those are great. I do quite a few of those myself, especially when I was doing more Eastern martial arts. There's nothing wrong with that, but people who practice those usually will tell you it's not a one-to-one combat thing. You don't go and watch BJJ and see them doing beautiful ballet moves. It's kind of grunting on the ground and rolling around. And there is elegance in that, but it's not the same as big spinning moves and things like that. There's showmanship involved in that, which is cool, but it doesn't mean it's practical. And lastly, the biggest driver of this, as always, is fantasy and anime and video games and things like that, because of course, in our media, we want things to be fantastic and amazing and cool, and it is. I love watching cool fights with spins and even reverse grip as long as it's acknowledged that it's fake and no one's trying to tell me, oh, this is very realistic. So for all of you out there who are arguing that reverse grip and spinning attacks and acrobatics and all of those other fantastic things are viable and accurate, I would say probably listen to the people who actually train with these things and are recreating the sword styles and studying the history and, you know, are out there on the front lines. And if you still think that you're right and all of them are wrong, well, I guess grab a sword and prove it.